Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Executive Insights by Shipping and Freight Resource. I'm privileged to have today on my side Chairperson Laura DiBella of the Federal Maritime Commission. Good afternoon, Chair, and welcome to this interview.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for the honor.
So you stepped into this role at a time when shipping is no longer just about freight rates and port calls. It is very much synonymous with geopolitics and economic security. So when you took on this position, what did you believe what needed to most urgently change at the FMC?
I wouldn't say what necessarily needed to be changed, but I think what needed to be perhaps enhanced and reinforced is truly the global perspective, the global reach that we truly have. And that's been kind of the pivot that the FMC has been taking over the past few years. Really COVID kind of changed the game for everybody, in the supply chain world. But, for the FMC included, in the regulatory side, we realize that we're not on an island, here in the United States, the continental United States. What happens clear across the world could have a very big impact to us here. So yes, it's beneficial for us to pay very close attention to what's happening, here in our backyard, but it is equally as important, if not more important, to pay attention to what's happening out there. So I try to send that message, to the team, as regularly as I'm able, without being annoying, saying think big, think broad. It's a big world out there, and we're responsible for all of it. So let's do some good work.
Yeah, that's a very broad ambit indeed. And previously, you've described the FMC as something close to a consumer protection agency. What does that really mean in practical terms? What did you mean by that?
I think it brings it to a more human level of like what is the role of a regulator, in this space. I mean, we're not just out there, issuing penalties and, judgments on certain things. We are, at the core of our mission, protecting the U.S. importer and exporter day in and day out. And we want to make sure that they have as much of an even playing field as possible, for them, large or small, it just doesn't matter. We're completely agnostic to who that consumer is, but we just want to make sure that they're able to do business and do business in a fair and efficient and economical environment. So it's really just putting a different light on what a regulator's role truly is.
Right. That's also a good ambition to have, and especially when it deals with the U.S. consumer who's running the world's largest economy. Now,
right.
You also mentioned that FMC needs to be more proactive, right? But regulators are usually reactive by design. So how do you shift that mindset without overstepping, as you mentioned, not be annoying, but tell the people how to do these things? How does that happen?
Yeah. Well, yeah, certainly encouragement, and also, thinking, encouraging the team to be inquisitive, to look for cues, look for patterns, look for all sorts of things, and they already do that. So my job is, relatively easy on that front. But where we're taking more of a proactive stance, as I kind of hinted at before, is really with the investigations. I think the investigations are, truly what will, unpack not only situations that or issues, shall we say, that have impacted us in the past, but potentially those that could impact us in the future, and how best that we can act accordingly to ensure a softer landing, shall we say, should something occur. So that's where the area that really excites me is, what is going to come out of these investigations. And we have multiple, we have the Port of Spain, the Spain investigation. We have the choke points investigation and the flags of convenience investigation, all which are underway right now. And we have, more that will come about, certainly. But, is depending on the information that comes back to us, what other spinoffs can we have outside of that we can continue to act upon?
So you mentioned earlier about not FMC not just being limited to looking at what's happening in your backyard, but also globally. And you just spoke about the maritime choke points as well. So these are, of course, geopolitical realities. What influence do you think the FMC can have really in situations like this? Because it's more of a commission than than an entity that can enforce, or am I wrong?
Well, on the geopolitical side, especially with on these investigation fronts, we are, think of us as a trusted resource and ally, from an information standpoint, for those that that are leading that area, that respond, who have the responsibility, say the State Department or Homeland Security, whoever it may be. So we don't necessarily always have to, be in pole position in these types of in this type of work, especially on the geopolitical front. But what we want to be is that, go-to resource for everything that involves the maritime space, because of the many reasons. But one large one is just the amount of misinformation that's out there. We are the subject matter experts in this arena, and we're proud of it. And we can certainly help them with some decision making, with their decision making that's so crucial as it relates to our business. So that's how I see ourselves in this geopolitical, tense geopolitical environment.
And in this scenario, where do you see the line between regulatory perspective and foreign policy? Where is that blurred, or is it clear?
It's blurred. It's blurred, but we certainly know which lane we play in. So going back to that, having great lines of communication, with our partners, understanding priorities and holding ourselves accountable and in the areas that we can control. So definitely having an understanding of where we need to be in certain discussions is key.
Commissioner, 2 years after the Ocean Shipping Reform Act, do you think things have genuinely improved for shippers? And do you think there's still something that needs fixing?
Overall, I think things have generally improved. Yes. I think there was a lot of lessons that were learned. I think we are better prepared should there be, a shock as egregious as the one that we experienced, back in COVID, madness. But I think at the same time, and therefore the shipper is in a better position to act accordingly. But at the same time, I think, now, the situation has evolved, shipping has evolved thanks to what occurred, and new trade lanes or ones that were perhaps less used are now, taking shape and are very robust. The global South is, continues to dominate, as far as growth is concerned. Like now we're just dealing with a whole new deck of cards, really. So it's it's not necessarily a finite end to what we were experiencing. Now this is a continuous discussion that is just going to evolve more and more. But to say that have we learned our lessons and are better prepared, I would say absolutely yes. And the shipper's in a better place for sure.
I guess that's all we can all aspire to in the end. Now, moving from trade to your personal records, 6 World Marathon Majors and record for the number of overall female winner titles in the 7-mile bridge run, is it? In Florida
right.
Keys. This is public information. Yeah. What is long distance running or distance running taught you about leading such complex challenges? I'm sure there's some lessons there.
Many lessons. Distance running is not, well, by the way, let me clarify. There's 7 World Marathon Majors now. I need to run Sydney, so they just added the 7th. So that's messing up the soup. So I have to get back into, I have to
You
get
can't
my
afford to miss that one.
I have to get my game face back on. So there, but yeah, there's a lot of lessons. Running is a wonderful marathon running and training is a wonderful metaphor for life and for business, especially when you have to, because it's a long game. It's a long strategy, and that is, ultimately, the world that we live in, maritime economic development. It doesn't matter how you label it. We are, it's day to day, small incremental, positive, I want to say changes, but positive effort that ultimately is going to lead to a big, lead to, a goal to which you strive for. So, and you start with the goal and you back into how you're going to get there. So however many months, that you give yourself to train for that. So not every day is a good day. You don't want to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning every day to go run. And, especially, you want your weekends. You don't have to run 25 miles on the weekends. So, it's but the same goes for life and for business. Not every day is perfect. Sometimes you got to put in more time and effort in order to get what you want. But with the clearest message in all of it is, what you put in is what you're going to get out. If you think you're going to run a 3-hour marathon without training for it, you're in trouble, unless you're like some spectacular athlete. So it really, really teaches you that you need to put in the time, and don't expect anything for, that anything's going to be handed to you. Otherwise, you'll end up with, some pretty serious injuries and a big serving of humble pie.
Great. Some great lessons there. Well, Commissioner Laura DiBella, thank you very much for taking the time to join us on the Executive Insights of Shipping and Freight Resource. I again congratulate you on the appointment, and looking forward to hearing more inputs and insights from the FMC, and also all the best in your work going forward.
I appreciate it very much. Thank you again for the time.
You're most welcome. Have a good day for the rest of the evening.
I shall. You too. Thank you.